Welcome to the Open Talent Report, the award-winning podcast where we dive deep into the emerging trends in global employment, the future of work, the talent crisis, the demographic deficit, and the new world of work with our expert host, Conor Heaney. Conor is the managing director at CXC EMEA, a company that takes the hassle out of finding, compliantly engaging and paying contractors anywhere in the world. In this podcast, Conor brings you captivating conversations with top CEOs, visionary founders, and industry experts. Together, they shed light on all things open talent and the evolving nature of work itself. So grab your headphones and join us on this exhilarating journey.
Hello and welcome to the Open Talent Report. This is an emergency podcast. Yes, it's just me on my own. It's weird talking to a video and having no one else on the podcast this week. I wanted to come on the show to talk about really three things, one of which is really, well, I hope all of them are interesting, but one of which is maybe quite pressing. So some of our listeners may be aware of a really interesting legal case that's taking place in Ireland and the USA at the moment. It involves two digital self-service EOR and HR platforms. One is called Deell and one is called Ripling. And some of the allegations, and I must stress they're allegations at this point, they are being litigated in the courts. This is only commentary on those allegations, is really around corporate espionage. So in the Irish courts on the 17th of March, a company called Ripling launched a motion against a company called Deell to say that essentially Ripling had found a corporate mole within their organization, within their compliance team. And what they allege is that that corporate mole was essentially placed there and paid for by one of their competitor organizations. Again, this is alleged. This has come out in the court reports. It's been widely reported on, particularly by a digital newspaper called The Currency here in Ireland, where I'm based at the moment. And in short, what Ripling are alleging is that Deell placed this mole within their organisation, paid this mole up to €5,500 on a monthly basis for receipt and exchange of information in relation to Ripling's customer base, which, if these allegations are true, is both shocking, interesting, and I think reveals something which may not be known about in the digital self-serve EOR market. So my take is that perhaps the market in that sector isn't as big as has been portrayed in some of the media and also by some of the valuations that some of these companies have got. I think it shows a level of competition and a level of ruthlessness that I did not think existed within this sector. And I think it suggests to me, if these allegations are true, that the sector is in for a bumpy time. And of course, I don't take any pleasure in that, but I wanted to draw our listeners' attention to some of the alleged nefarious behavior. Because when it comes to working with EOR, AOR, compliance and payroll providers, any reputational, financial and legal risk is not good. I think it's fair to say. Enterprise companies and medium-sized organization and SMB companies pay EOR companies to essentially mitigate reputational, legal and financial risk. And they do not wish to be put in jeopardy by engaging platforms, EOR platforms and companies that are non-compliant. And by doing that, of course, that can have a reputational risk impact on the end user of these particular platforms and services. And I note on platforms such as LinkedIn, a number of companies moving away from digital self-service EOR platforms, principally because they're concerned about the following: compliance risk, automation, as in fully automated, lack of service, chatbots that don't work, tools that only seem to work for specific countries, and really a service and expertise when it comes to compliance that is distinctly lacking, which I think is problematic for digital self-service EOR companies in the market. And I think it's problematic for enterprise organizations that have extended or contingent workforce that want to work with EOR and AOR providers. And my own prediction is that we will start to see those companies move away from EOR and digital self-service platforms to companies that have both a tech and a human touch, such as CXC, where you have that experience, that compliance expertise, you have that passion for service and that service excellence approach, because you cannot automate accountability. You cannot fully, in my view, automate risk management. You cannot fully, in my view, automate reputation management and reputational risk. And I think what we're seeing in that EOR self-service digital space is really going to be problematic for any company that's working with them that is concerned about reputational risk. I recently had the opportunity to attend ProcureCon in Nice, and it was my first time in Nice and my second time at ProcureCon. And I was lucky enough to meet some amazing leaders from the global and European procurement community. And I've worked with procurement leaders such as chief procurement officers, head of procurement, procurement directors, extended workforce managers, contingent workforce managers, indirect procurement over the last nearly 20 years of my career. And I've often thought about procurement as the ultimate relationship job. Yes, of course, it's about control. Yes, of course, it's about governance. Yes, of course, it's about getting the best deal for the company that you work for. And of course, yes, it's about getting cost savings. But I think what's often under-recognized and underappreciated is that the procurement and procurement leaders also have some of the best and first relationships with that whole ecosystem of suppliers, partners, and vendors. And oftentimes, those suppliers, partners, and vendors are at the cutting edge of technology or at the cutting edge of business, and they're offering real value to the company that the procurement leaders are representing. And some of those relationships are multi-year and also in many cases multi-decade. And I think that speaks volumes to the value that procurement leaders bring when it comes to relationships. The other thing that I wanted to mention as well is that the best procurement people that I've had the pleasure and the privilege of working with have the following characteristics. They have an innate sense of fairness. They're honest. They have a sense of justice or equality. Because in order to get the right deal and the best deal, you need to exemplify all those characteristics. And to my earlier points on relationship building and being the ultimate relationship builders, in order to establish trust, you need to have honesty, you need to have integrity, you need to have fairness, you need to have those innate senses of justice and about striking the right deal and the right bargain for the benefit of both parties. And I think the best procurement people exemplify those values and exemplify those traits. And it was really interesting for me as someone who's worked with procurement. Of course, I'm not in procurement. I'm on what I would describe as the sell or the solution side. But it was really interesting to hear procurement leaders not just speaking about cost savings. It was really interesting for me to hear about procurement leaders talking about the impact of AI on their organizations, the benefits of AI on their organizations, some of the potential negative or unintended consequences of AI on their organizations, about the value that they bring to their organizations, not just about cost savings, but about working with some leading edge technology and business providers, about bringing real innovation into their business, about building ecosystems to support their businesses from a partnership and vendor and supplier perspective, but also about procurement leading initiatives around sustainability, people sustainability, environmental sustainability, investing in suppliers, taking stakes in suppliers, particularly smaller suppliers, to ensure that they can continue to deliver. What I really enjoyed about spending time with those procurement leaders in ProcureCon was all the innovation that they bring to their businesses, all the thought leadership they bring to their business, all the protection measures they bring to their business. And I love the fact that all of that is based on trust, honesty, integrity, fairness, and a keen sense of justice, and really about that ecosystem that they build within their organization. So I'm really excited to see what's going to happen in the procurement sector, in the procurement world, particularly with the advances that AI is making. AI is helping procurement to, I suppose, get rid of some of the more mundane tasks, PO issuance, goods receipting, RFP creation, RFP audit, RFP review. AI can do a lot of those things really well. But what it can't do really well, at least yet, is build those long-term, sustainable and scalable partnerships and relationships. And I'm really excited to see what happens in procurement and the procurement sector when it comes to relationship building, relationships evolving, and the sector and procurement professionals continuing to add value in this space. I've been speaking a lot over the last year about what I've been calling the AI illusion. So really trying to deconstruct the hype behind AI. So I'm going to be honest with you. I'm an avid user of AI. I'm an avid user of Microsoft Copilot and ChatGPT, particularly the enterprise version. I love the fact that it can do things that would take me 2 days, 3 days, 5 days to do. I can do business cases in 5-10 minutes. It's really bloody brilliant. But when I've been speaking about AI, particularly on my podcast, but also in some of the keynote presentations I've been lucky to do over the last year, where I'm really coming from is the unintended consequences of continued AI growth, of exponential advancements in AI, of a lack of regulation and governance about how fast and how quickly AI develops. And really where this is coming from is about jobs. I'm the dad of two young daughters. They're 8 and 5. And I'm really concerned about the future for them, particularly the future when it comes to jobs and the future of work. And I believe, and this is my view, that if AI continues unchecked, then we're going to be seeing jobs displacement like we've never seen in our lifetime, and maybe never have seen in the course of history. And the reason for that is multifactorial. One, humans have never had an intelligent competitor. With AI and its exponential growth and exponential advancements, that is the case. Two, AI has the ability, potential, and capability to replace people when it comes to tasks and jobs. We're already seeing that. And unfortunately, we're seeing that in lower paid jobs. We're seeing displacement in that sector. We're seeing it in what would be considered the traditional white collar, middle class, upper middle class jobs in tax, accounting, coming into law. And then, according to the World Economic Forum, we're expected to see net job losses between 2025 and 2027, 14 million people. And that's on the conservative side. I seen a report from the United Nations yesterday that suggests and indicates that up to 40% of humanity will be adversely impacted by AI. So as a dad, as someone that's concerned for my fellow citizens and someone that's concerned for the future of jobs and the future of work, I'm concerned that not many people are talking about these potential and actual negative consequences of AI. And the reason I want to speak about this is because I'd like more people to listen, I'd like more people to get involved, and I'd like more people to comment in terms of what your thoughts are about exponential AI growth, unchecked AI growth, and a lack of regulation when it comes to AI growth. And it's interesting as well to see what's happening in some of the larger enterprises when it comes to jobs. So already we're seeing job losses. We've just come through one of the great tech reductions in force. What does that mean? Job losses. That's been really happening over the last 2 years. Organizations are really starting to focus on how they can get work done, right? What that means is, will that work be done by a human? Will it be done by a human on a permanent basis, a contractor basis? Will it be done by a bot, an agent, a BPO, an outsource center, a statement of work or system integrator, or some form of consultant organization? And we're already seeing, as I mentioned earlier, jobs being lost, right? It's called displacement, but when you strip it back, it's essentially people losing their jobs. Not always a good thing, I think you'll agree with me on. So my prediction is that we will start to see within large enterprises and maybe smaller organizations over time is an increased focus on people sustainability, an increased focus on ensuring that people within organizations are upskilled and reskilled to do more interesting or better work within their organizations, but also, crucially, that those enterprises are preparing their employees for life outside their organization due to advances in technology and AI. So for me, who's a positive optimist, although it might not sound like that today, I'm really concerned about the future, and I really want to provoke a debate and discussion on AI and how potentially we can come together to really say, is this the right way to do it? Is unfettered AI growth, AI development, the best thing for jobs and the best thing for humanity? I'd love to talk about it more. Thanks very much for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Open Talent Report with Conor Heaney. If you found this podcast informative and engaging, make sure you subscribe, tell your friends, and follow us on all your favorite streaming platforms.